Welcome to Keep It Moving with Marcia Jews and Company. We are so excited to be here. We have some really great guests, and I think it's going to be really educational for you. It's we're featuring tonight at 6 o'clock Marty McNair, who's the president at the Jordan McNair Foundation. There is much to learn about his story, and trust me, it'll be thought provoking and important to all parents. Then at last guest at 7 p.m., an award winning performer, Phyllis Stickney, one of the first comedians of color to perform at the Jos pour Rire Comedy Festival in Montreal, Canada, and at the world famous Showtime at the Apollo Theater. Phyllis has performed with the Last Poets on the soundtrack of Panther and so much more. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back to learn more about Marty McNair, his program, and his story. And I'm Marcia Jews. So let's see if we could bring Marty on and talk to him about what he's been up to. Hello.
Hey, Marcia, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I am great. It's been a minute.
Thanks again. For sure. I didn't
Yeah.
think we'd circle back around, right? But thank you for having me for the second time.
Well, we're supposed to do that because you're
Yep.
doing all of this great work. Let's talk about the great work that you're doing and why is the Jordan McNair Foundation important and how and why was it created?
Yes. So for us, in regards to the relevancy or the importance of our mission, my son Jordan, and most people, especially at the local level, they probably seen me at least one or two times in the media, really just you know carrying the student athlete safety advocacy torch. We're proud to go into our fifth year. My son Jordan is a University of Maryland football player who passed back in 2018 from complications of a heat-related injury. And basically, first day of practice, and Jordan had a heat stroke, and it really kind of turned our whole worlds upside down. And when I was just it's interesting because out of the work that we do, I was literally our goal this year is to do more education. So we were at Bowie State University today, and with Coach Cal Jackson, and we're doing some partnerships with them, and it was really just great to see the significance of and the impact that an HBCU has amongst our people, in a sense, or amongst young African Americans, not only in just sports but just overall. And it was ironic. It was really interesting to see that they had a student government voting, and it was so interesting to see the young people on the yard and just how far or how they embrace technology, just really to just get their votes in. And everybody had a table out, and they were just so much further to really, like, in regards to their posters and their signage and things like that. And they were just really into getting the votes in regards to student government. But basically, Marshall, our story really just turned from a pain to a passion, or a pain to a purpose. And Jordan was Tanya and I's only son, and he was a guy that basically had the world is his oyster. He was a University of Maryland football player. He went to
Hi, turn
McDonough
off the
High
music,
School,
please.
and basically, it was just a guy that we would expect this would be his unfortunate demise, in a sense. Where of everything that the projection that he was on, we never thought that it would kind of end like this. And basically, it was kind of that whole thing where I was talking when I was on campus today, and I'll kind of base my story off our experience today, because when I was on campus today, it was like not only was I talking to the football coach, I was talking to athletic trainers. I met the athletic director of Bowie State University. It was basically like meeting everybody that you could possibly meet, the cheerleading coach, because all these people are affected by sports and heat related injuries, in a sense. And really, we just been really kind of just making an impact along the way in regards to legislation around student athlete safety. We've gotten 4 laws passed in the state of Maryland. Man, 4 laws. I wrote a book. I mean, it just really, you could have told me this would be the trajectory 6 years ago, or this would be the impact that we've made 6 years ago in regards to honoring our son. I can't hear you.
Okay, I guess I need to.
Sure. Yep.
I don't know. The host has unmuted me. Okay, so please accept my condolences. I know that this is going to be for the rest of your life, and the fact that you have put so much to it, and in his name, and Jordan can rest that you are carrying the ball over that goal line, right? Sure. And you mentioned there were several things laws that were passed. Let's talk about those laws and what you went through in order to make that occur. I know it was not easy.
Well, no. So basically, I'm keep in mind my advocacy. I was always an advocate. I was prior to Jordan passing. I was a reentry advocate. So I was reenter. I mean, I basically own substance abuse and mental health program in Baltimore City. So I really focused on like reentering citizens from prison and things like that. So when Jordan passed, I'd already had an advocacy spirit. So the trajectory for me just changed. However, when you talk about legislation and bills, I was basically that guy that, I remember when you talked about a bill, all I remember was Schoolhouse Rocks on Saturday mornings when they talked that commercial. I'm a bill, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
And it was all over the country.
That was very, very educational. You know why? Because I've made it to Capitol Hill. We've made it to the congressional level to try to get, and you talking about hard, it's even harder up there. But for me, initially, it was kind of like, I always knew like I wanted to put one bill in Jordan's name around student athlete safety. I was definitely didn't think about 4 or possibly more. And really for us, it was really like, we wanted to we didn't want to let Jordan die in vain. And again, we wanted people to learn from what we experienced, right? And I didn't know the magnitude of how many kids. I just knew when we went to hospital, I kept asking myself, it was something that I missed. And I think as a father, who was very active for 19 years in his life, whenever something goes wrong, it's always the father's fault. It's not the mom's fault, because you just think, what didn't I prepare my child for? Or my son for. I thought I literally taught him everything I knew. Not everything, but within reason for 19 years. Right. Again, but I gave him the basics to, take care of himself. And what I didn't protect him from was what I didn't know. And regarding, that, so when the legislation came about, it was like I was just really thinking about one bill, like, okay, we're gonna put a bill in Jordan's name. And I remember at that time I was watching TV one day, and Marsha, I'm the guy, I have a ton of organic stories on our progress, right? A ton of organic analogies. Like I like to tell people I wasn't that smart in regards to this. I know Brandon Scott at that time, he was city council president, and they ran a story and they were talking about student athlete safety, and they mentioned Jordan's name. So Jordan had became the example of what not to do. He became the example, what a poster boy for student athlete safety. So one of my contacts and introduced me to Brandon, introduced us to Brandon, Jordan's mom and I, and it was like, you know what, I see we need to, let's work together on the bill. And basically, at that time they had kind of had something together. And, for me, it was like, hey, here's some info. If you want to make any addendums or make any suggestions to the bill or whatever. And it would be funny because really, Marsha, like I would read those bills and it was like reading hieroglyphics to me, the language. And, a draft is very challenging if you're not versed in reading anymore.
Yeah,
you're not.
That's not your lane.
That's right. Not my lane. And even when people send me drafts now, it's like, okay. It's just like things I really don't like to read. However, I will read them because I understand them a lot more. And at that time, it was just like, okay, how can we make an impact? So initial bill that we did was in Baltimore City, and that was called the Jordan McNair Youth Safety Protection Act. And what that meant was any school, we partnered with Parks and Recreations, any organization that was using Parks and Recreations needed to be trained in student athlete safety, whether it was heat-related injuries, CPR, cardiac arrest, how to use the AED machines, concussions, because these are the four main things that can, cause a serious tragedy if people aren't trained. We saw that with Damar Hamlin earlier this year. So that was the first bill that we got passed at the municipality level. And then here I am, I'm reading, because now I'm a student of things I didn't pay attention to before. Now I just pay, like, this is what I focus on now. So now I'm reading another article in the paper, and they would mention Jordan's name again. And they were talking about a House bill that didn't have a name at that time. And they, really, I think Shelley Heddleman, Senator Shelley, she was a delegate at that time, but Senator Heddleman was a sponsor on that bill. I really didn't know the significance of sponsors at that time. I didn't know I'm not as versed as I am now back then. So I just saw, she was on the bill. I shot her an email, and I didn't get a response back like for a minute. And she had responded immediately, because Jordan's story, our story was very, very, literally the most talked about sports story for about almost 2 years, if not longer. So I reached out to Shelley Heddleman, and she got back to me, and, Shelley introduced me to newly elected Maryland Comptroller Brooke Learman at the time. So it was Shelley, I, and Brooke. We had a lot of meetings, and we went from the Jordan McNair Act on that one. And basically, the Jordan McNair Act is any student, any collegiate student athlete at any school in the state of Maryland, if they feel uncomfortable, they can call a 1-800 number really to speak on anything they feel uncomfortable about anonymously. Once again, back to our story, that kind of went along with our story because they were talking about a toxic culture at that time and things like that. So we added Jordan's name to that bill. Now, at that time, I'm steady working with a couple other parents around the nation who lost their their child, regardless of student athlete, and certain bills were getting passed. However, the language in the bills were very, very, when you look at legislation, language is very, very key. Verbiage is key in regards to the impact of the bill. So it was another high school bill that was the most impactful bill that we were working on at that time. Then the NIL bill came up. We started working on that bill. Now, Marsha, I'm getting I'm getting my confidence up because now I'm not just letting people use Jordan's name out of notoriety in a sense. So now I know how to leverage the bill. So it was like, really, if we're not putting health and safety in the NIL bill, which is name, image, and likeness, we're not concerned about players getting paid for their image and likeness. My man is gone. So at the end of the day, we're focused on the health and wellness of student athlete safety. So we're steady meeting more people, meeting more sponsors that get in behind the bill. Now I know what a notable provision is, and our notable provision was the health and safety of student athletes in the state of Maryland.
Right.
Period. Bottom line, you can't do any of the things in regard. You can't force a kid back to play. You can't take their scholarship because they got injured. But again, this is the notable provision. So we had a bipartisan effort. First time dealing with knowing what a bipartisan example of.
All right.
At the congressional level, they say both sides of the aisle. But, hey, we already know, for those your listeners that may not know, that means when a Democrat and a Republican can agree on the same thing, and we can successfully go from the House to the Senate, and this is something that we can all agree on. That's a bipartisan effort. So that was our third bill. But the thing was, Marsha, I remember I was telling the sponsors at that time, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here. You can't use Jordan's name unless you all take this other bill that we're working on. So we need you to start.
We're playing politics now.
I'm playing politics now. Correct. So I'm learning as we go along. Now, interesting thing with that one was, so we got the NIL bill, and that was the biggest bill passed at the time.
Okay.
But the interesting thing for us, Marsha, was while we were steady advocating for these bills, kids keep dying across the nation. So clearly it's not just about legislation because kids keep dying. So the more and more I'm learning about these bills, it's like, okay, what's the common denominator and why young people are still dying? We don't hear about it because it's not in our geographical area. However, I have a team of board members, medical advisory board members across the nation. So whenever a kid goes down, I get the emails my team gets the emails in regards to what happened. And it was just like, okay, now I'm seeing student athletes are not just dying from heat-related injuries, but cardiac arrest. Are just all the four main things that usually are the culprits, which are heart, heat, head, and hemoglobin. So it's usually concussions, cardiac arrest, heat, if they have type of cell, something like that, because all that kind of falls in the main thing. But so what I'm realizing now is like, okay, we're trying to get legislation passed, and we had success in the state of Maryland. Maryland was an excellent template in regards to the bills that we talked to other sponsors in other states about. So one of the things that I mentioned was people kept dying, and it was like, what's the common denominator here in regards to these deaths? And it always boiled back down to the emergency action plan. When Jordan passed, it all boiled down to. So I'm going to tell you what an emergency action plan.
Oh, yeah, but I didn't get the whole sentence of what you said.
Okay, so like I said, student athletes were consistently dying across the nation. And the one common denominator that I realized was it was boiled down to the emergency action plan. So the emergency action plan is the fire drill. So in layman's terms, we already know you have a fire drill every quarter in your corporate office or something like that. Everybody goes, stands across the street. Whoever takes the head count, then we go back in the building. However, every time you walk out on the field, the potential for a fire can happen. So when we saw Damar Hamlin scenario on Monday Night Football, that was a successful emergency action plan. Okay, you had the NFL. So basically, they literally responded to him within that 3 to 5 minute time frame, right, with the right equipment and everything. 85% of the people that probably watch Monday Night Football probably didn't even know what they were looking at. But unfortunately, it doesn't always go that way in the rest of the world. I got a whole list of families where a successful executed emergency action plan would have saved their child, and we wouldn't be in a club that nobody wants to be a part of. Now, so we got a bill passed last year. That may have been, to me, our most impactful bill, which is House Bill 836. And House Bill 836 states that all public schools in the state of Maryland, public middle and high schools, if they're playing any types of sports, the emergency action plan has to be practiced at twice a year at the beginning of every spring season and every fall season. So what does that mean to a layman? Basically, you all have to go through and practice these four things: heat, heart, so basically cardiac arrest, heat stroke, concussions, and whatever other safety measures from these types of injuries and how to identify them. So now at least twice a year doesn't seem like a lot, but back to the statement I made about verbiage, it's mandated, not suggested. It's mandated. So Marsha,
this is like a fire drill. This is a fire drill, basically.
Correct. And this needs to be practiced consistently. So when we say with sports, it's not a matter of what's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And we want to be prepared when it happens. But the interesting thing, Marsha, is what I learned about bills, right? Here I am. I just gave you 4 bills, and they protect literally student athletes from the AAU level all the way up to the collegiate level, right? However, the interesting thing about a bill is it don't mean squat unless people know about the bill. That's where the real advocacy comes in at. So ask me, how many student athletes, the collegiate players, know about the Jordan McNair bill, the Jordan McNair Act that protects them? Probably not many. Everybody know about it. Just because, again, that's really the part about legislation. When you look at a bill, if you're not yelling from the rafters that this bill protects you, your child, my child, this person's child, or it protects everybody's child, a lot of times people won't even know about it until it's a reactionary perspective. So that's where the real advocacy comes in at. That's when we start yelling and educating people about bills through, guess what? This protects your child. It doesn't have to be so late in order for this to happen.
Right.
So interesting thing, Marsha, I work with families in various states that unfortunately experience the same thing. So I was on a call yesterday. I was listening to a live podcast, a similar show like this, and they were down in Georgia. So I live between Georgia and Baltimore. So a family I work with, and no offense to, I got to remind myself that my counterparts in Georgia don't move as fast as we do up north. Right. And a lot of times people are just kind of simple. And what I mean by simple, not in a negative way, they're just not in the fast pace, the way we do things. And I'm sitting here like, you should have heard me yelling and screaming over to myself, because the bills that they were trying to get passed, they still don't have a full comprehension of the bills,
What it is. Mm-hmm.
what it is, or not what it is, the magnitude and how impactful these bills can be. And that's really the main thing where it's like, and I had to kind of, remind myself, like, they don't move as fast as we do up here. They just kind of slow. So I got to turn it down
A
to try
different
to
pace.
get a different pace for me. And the
Yeah.
main goal for us really is, when we look at legislation, we've already gotten successful legislation passed around student athlete safety. We're trying to improve it in the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland is ideal. So when I pass these bills around the various legislators, it's like, this is a success that we had. So we know it'll be successful. We know it. So it's no need to it's no need to recreate the wheel. It just may be a way of just saying, maybe we can tweak a few spokes on the bill. You know what I mean? But again, this is an example of getting it passed.
So I got a couple of questions here, just
Yes,
to
ma'am.
insert. When we talk about legislation, are you also working with the Congressional Black Caucus and the National Organization of Black County Officials and those types of folks who can take that and drop it and mandate?
So the main thing is, to answer your question, not with those particular organizations. However, we talked with really, I was really excited. I was at CBC last year, and I'm that guy
Congressional
that
Black
meets people.
Caucus, for those of
Correct.
Congressional Black Caucus, for those that don't know what CBC
Don't know,
stands
right?
for.
So, and I'm the guy that always, I'm a firm believer in, you meet the people that you're supposed to meet when you're supposed to meet them. The universe makes no mistakes.
Yeah.
Met some people from met a former legislator from California, had really introduced me to a whole lot of, made some really good connections in California. And really the main focus at that point was really to get to the NBCSL. So the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. That's it. Smaller version of CBC. So the main goal is really to speak to the one to many ratio. However, politics again. So we still haven't given up that. And it was just a short period of time from that meeting that they had in 2022 versus 2023. So that's really one of our main goals, to connect with or to get to that particular platform this year, because again, we can present this to everybody in the room, and those that want to take it, they can take it and go from there at that point.
And they need to, because here's the reality is that those folks out on those fields and out on those courts are looking like us. And so
Exactly.
okay. And let's just deal with it. And then they have the Black Doctors Association. So all those associations and all the, what is it, Sigma Pi Phi and the Alpha Kappa, all of those people need to be putting their name on that list to make certain that this legislation is deployed in every state that has any type of sports program. It's not just football, it's soccer, it's all that other stuff that we need to be dealing with. I got a grandson who loves soccer. That's not a joke. If he's out there running, it's hot and it's the sun's shining, you trying to get to the other end and trying to move around. That's the same. It's a variation on that same thing, and it's not a joke.
Correct. Exactly. Everybody all athletes are affected by the work that we do.
Right.
The interesting thing, Marsha, is even from a congressional perspective, we worked with Senator Cory Booker and Senator Blumenthal, and I testified in front of Congress under a Student Athletes Bill of Rights, right? A couple in 21. So you can imagine the majority of senators from all the states. But at that time, you got to look at 2021, January 6th. And, at that level, both sides of the aisle, being politically correct, weren't agreeing. And then you add that filibuster thing in. So, it's kind of like my wife is the political junkie in my house. And she told me, she said, yeah, I understand you're optimistic, but I'm telling you, that's a tough platform. So my optimism turned into realism because, again, the main goal that we want to do is create baseline standard. Do we want to go to all 52 states and work hard, versus do we want to establish a baseline standard at Congress or at the congressional level or the federal level? And we have these particular laws across the nation because they all affect the same demographics in a sense. So it's funny because I'm the guy. I'm going to push up. My wife tells me all the time, like you push up on anybody. So it's funny. I was over in D.C. With the cardiac arrest thing, with DeMar Hamlin was speaking. So I'm on the elevator, and Senator Blumenthal is on the elevator with me, and I'm like, hey, I'm Marty McNair, Senator Blumenthal, and I said, I testified on that Student Athletes Bill of Rights. So they remembered me, and he was like, yeah, we're still working on that. So I'm like, let me give you my card. And he got off on the 5th floor, him and his team on the 4th floor. I was going to the 5th floor. I jumped right off behind him, like, no, make sure you get this, because I'm not going to see this guy next week.
Right.
Yeah, right off behind him. I'm like, wait a minute, Senator.
Right. Excuse me. We halfway up. It don't matter. I'm jumping off.
Exactly. I can walk up the steps to the 5th floor
right, because we're gonna have this conversation today.
Exactly. And that's really so important when you look at and what people, even if people don't really know what baseline standard is, somebody gave me the perfect analogy of baseline standard. The speed limit. That's baseline standard across the nation. If you look from a federal level, the speed limit. Every state you go into, it's a different speed limit. People respect it. You know what I mean? And that's just something that affects us all. So that's usually the perfect analogy. So even for me, legislative wise, I start going back looking at the bills, right? Because at that time, when I looked at the Baltimore City bill, it looked great on paper, but logistically, it didn't really make a lot of sense. We're still working on some stuff.
But wait. What do you mean?
Because I think that without throwing, when you say, for instance, that was the first bill I worked on. So a lot of times, even when people, prime example, the call I was listening to yesterday, I worked with them on some stuff in Georgia, and they thought it was all about the cold water tub, because the young man, the family I worked with, he had a heat stroke, and they kept saying, well, these cold water vessels, and it's like, I'm looking at the park. I'm looking at the logistics of the park where the young man died at. You can't put a cold water tub without a water source to fill it up on the furthest part of the park. So when you look at logistics of things, you have to see what they look like realistically, because it's so much easier. Because keep in mind, one of the main things I've realized about legislators is this. Let me take legislators out of this. Marshall, we're going into year 5, and I realized that people get behind the individual and the story. They don't get behind a mission sometimes. Sometimes they do something, but you got to have a good story.
And you got to hit that heartstring. You got to hit that heartstring.
Exactly. Correct. Mm-hmm. Exactly. To make them want to consistently support your mission. Because at times when you look at legislators, my mission is important to me only. It ain't, guess what? The legislator, look, Cory Booker and them, they went in the witness protection program. They stopped answering the phone orders after that day. They won't, look, I just sent books to them and everything. But again, they're on to the next mission, where our mission may be a life-changing mission to us, but from a legislative, they are working on the next big thing, because we're somebody else pulling at them. That's a politician's job. Politician ain't, unless they have a student athlete as a child, grandchild, or something like that, then they have a genuine interest in it. See my point? And these are all things that I'm just kind of learning along the way. I mean, obviously, they're very crucial in regards to getting the work done, but you can't sit there and expect them, like, this is my mission. I can't sit here and expect you to put the same energy that I'm going to put into it consistently the way that I do. I'm grateful for the work that we can do to make a difference, but you can't, that's like saying just pay attention to my interests versus, you're serving the people in a sense. So you got to go where the wind blows in regards to that.
So here's another question. We talked about those legislative organizations, right? But also there are the fraternal organizations. There isn't, I don't know anybody, I haven't met very few that I haven't, but between all of these different fraternities and sororities and all of the ad hoc ones, or the ones that aren't necessarily, the big ones, you have all these people who look like us, who have children who look like us, who are playing sports who look like us. And it how do you rally all of those entities, 100 black women, the 100 black men, all of these people are all over this nation. All they're in every state. They're I got a cousin who has a whole circle of black folks in Iowa, right? It's like Bruce, how you get anyway. So when you when you look at this, we're everywhere. And so I'm just saying there's almost like an infrastructure that has to carry and mandate certain requirements in their footprint. That should be a mandate that gets distributed throughout the nation. The superintendent, the presidents of the colleges, all of these people, those HBCUs, all of these people need to be in lockstep about the life of our children.
Totally agree.
Period. I don't want to hear about
Totally agree.
another party. I don't want to hear
Yeah,
about, we had the barbecue. I'm
totally
sick of
agree.
all that. There's some
Right.
hard, serious work that needs
Right.
to be done in this country, in the black community. I ain't going to talk about nobody else. I'm going to talk
Totally agree.
about black folks. And to get
Totally
up
agree.
off that high horse, off that little foolishness, and get to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Totally agree. I totally agree with you. And let me say this, Marshall. The main thing is when you do advocacy work, the big thing is it seems like you can never really the finish is you're nowhere near to leaning into the finish tape, or the finish line tape. And the main thing is, you just gave me some ideas of folks that I need to follow up with. The big thing is this is the interesting thing, especially in this space that I'm in. Most families that usually start advocacy as a result of this type of scenario, most people just usually, they come out the gate strong, right? And really, if they got other children, they may have jobs. They got to go back to their regular life because advocacy and running a foundation
It's a
literally
lot.
is a full-time job, right? And I'm not glad that it was Jordan, but I'm almost glad that it was me because I was in a position to really kind of run. This is all I do.
To do
This is
something.
literally all
Right.
I do.
Right.
Now, I mean,
Call
I
to action.
transition, call to action. This is all that I do. Like, this is what we do 1000%. And the main goal really is so we're going into year 5, right? And I don't know, I've been very emotional in regards to just looking at what we've done. And, very excited about a documentary that we're premiering at our fundraiser this weekend. And it's just, wow, like, wow, Jordan, it's like, wow, this is significant in regards to where we are. So the main thing is, people kind of start out, people make emotional donations early on, right? They make emotional donations early on, and then they constantly seeing you, and then you're going through the process and the incremental process. So the point that I'm making is, we haven't gotten to that point where we're in year 5 now. So even in regards to the work and people see the work that we do, we're showing improvement. We're consistent, most importantly. We've been impactful, most importantly, regardless of the size. Like, we're a small organization. Let me tell you, Westmore, our governor told me a couple of years ago, he said, look, Marty, before, I don't even know if he was thinking about running, he was still with the Robin Hood Foundation. And I remember one good thing he told me, he said, bro, no matter what size of your organization, big or small, just make sure it's impactful. And
Yes.
that's one of the things that, I'm more than confident that, we're impactful. And the thing is, going into year 5, so we went from emotional donations to really people seeing the work that we do, to really people, getting behind the work that we do now. So now it's really like, okay, my goal, which I tell my team, long as we can do more this year than we did last year, we're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
We're making more contacts. So again, you just gave me a list of people to put on my hit list to follow up. We don't need to see more parties. We don't need to see, and I'm not taking anything away from any of
No,
these because I'm
no.
going to need them.
But there's some priorities that we need to be focused on as a people in this
Totally,
nation. and
Totally
the
agree.
life of our children. And we have far too many of our children that are on those fields that are going through, and
Yeah,
families are having to deal with not
sure.
being able to make changes in their
Correct.
children's position, right?
They may
Because
not know,
this is
and the
for the
thing is,
rest of
right.
your life, the
Totally
rest of your
agree.
life.
One of the main things is, Marsha, when I wrote a book, it's called "Can My Child Play? The Questions We Should Have Asked." I never asked questions. Jordan would play. He was an athlete his whole entire life. From the time I had him playing since he was 6 years old. I always asked, and the title of the book is "Can My Child Play?" Because as a parent of a student athlete, that's the only questions we ask. Can they play and why aren't they playing? We don't know to ask any of the safety questions that, in the event of my child gets hurt, what systems do you all have in place? I
Right,
never thought to ask those things, and I didn't
right,
know about them. So
right.
really, our book is, what you see on the screen is not only a book about family. Everything that we deal with in the Black family, self-love, how to raise a child, how to co-parent successfully, my redemption, me just want my son to be better than me. And every family, I think, can get some, everybody that reads this can get something out of it. But the point I'm making is sometimes we just don't know, and that's all that it attributes
And
to.
you
I
don't know
told you,
what you don't know. And you don't know what you
bottom
don't
line,
know.
it's no crime there. We just don't know what we
Right,
don't know. You're absolutely
right.
right, for sure.
That's right.
And
That's
really,
right.
that's really one of our missions to um, teach folks, teach parents, because it's interesting, Marsha. We look at let's look at Baltimore City right now, right? And
Mhm.
just look at the youth is significant right now. Youth activity, youth. I mean, and I don't even think that I wouldn't want to be the mayor, because again, I think nobody has Brandon ain't pulling the triggers, for lack of a better term,
Right.
right?
All
And
right.
and again, but where do we make the impact at? And one of the things that I feel as though we make the impact, we teach our children better, right? And we teach our children better at home with us. And we teach our grandchildren and all the people, at the ones that we have a direct connect to. And then guess what? Hopefully if we teach them correctly and we raise them right, they'll raise their children right. And it just, you see where it goes on, that cycle of
That's right.
positivity and teaching rightness and giving kids a solid foundation. Sometimes that starts at home. So one of the main things that we really focus on is parent education. Marsha, I told Jordan was 6'5", 300 pounds, a
Mm.
size 16 shoe. He had the golden ticket, literally. He could have went
Wow.
anywhere. And we got over thousands and thousands of pieces of mail from schools across the country where he had the opportunity. And one of the main things, I used to take him everywhere, to every camp and combine for money we'd put together in the hat as a family. You name it, I would get him there or take him. And it was always one thing that was consistent. There was no education. I mean, there was no safety education. There was no parent education. All you ever did was sit in the stands and watch your kid play. If a piece of safety equipment had fell on my head, I wouldn't have known
Mm.
what it was, because nobody told me
Mm.
what it was. I never saw safety equipment on the field. But again, we just send our kids right into these environments, in a
Into the
sense.
lion's mouth.
Into the lion's mouth, not really knowing. We're not doing it
Right.
until we don't know what we don't know. And that
Mm.
was really one of the things that, when I wrote the book, when we do our educational sessions or our our student athlete sports clinics and things like that, I really want young parents to come, because at the end of the day, it starts at home. We got to educate parents. One of my biggest regrets was, I told Jordan how to stand up for himself, how to fight for himself, how to always be a leader, never a follower amongst his peers. I never told him if he felt uncomfortable around a coach or an adult, speak up, because I always taught him to be coachable. If coach say run off the cliff to his
Mm.
demise. So it
Mm.
all starts at home in regards to teaching your student athletes self-advocacy, teaching them if they
Mm.
feel uncomfortable to speak up. That same way at home. How many of us as adults in our financial literacy, we had to learn ourselves, because guess what? Our parents didn't teach us that when we were
Right.
young. They
That's
didn't
right.
plant those seeds.
Didn't
So
prepare us.
that's
We
really
weren't
one of the
prepared.
things that we did. Correct. Exactly. So that's really our main focus. Where, as an organization, we focus on student athlete self advocacy, education around these particular types of injury, awareness education, the prevention of these types of injuries, And that's really like our main focus. But it starts, the younger they are, the more prepared that we can make them. And we definitely will get away from asking questions whether they can play or not. You know, sports is a tool. Bottom line, it's a tool to get more out of educate. If it's lower hanging fruit, utilize
Yes.
the low hanging fruit in certain communities to get to the bigger picture.
But the
So
reality is that you need to be able to know, let's go back to 'cause what you said is one of my favorites. You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't have a um, a recipe book, if you don't have that encyclopedia of information to prepare your child for what that looks like, then it's impossible. I'd like for there's the Jordan McNair Foundation.org. Can people buy the book from that
yeah,
website?
yep, you can,
Okay,
correct. You
so
can buy the
take that.
book there. I'll sign it and everything. Yep.
Okay, that I think is a good start to
Mhm.
be able to have the book, and maybe that one book can go to all of those locations, not necessarily one book, but there's to the leadership of all of those organizations that we just talked about. And when we sit down and think about who are the people in those leadership roles that should be able to take that and pull 10 things that are critical in this book for them to get started with their organization to be a partner,
Totally agree. Totally agree. Marsha, you
right?
know the interesting thing. Yes, ma'am. Totally agree. You know, it's interesting because and I know we're kind of pressed for time, but I
That's
know
okay. We're good.
when when we first did the book, right? And I never did an official book launch because I released it during COVID. Because really, like, you know, by COVID shutting things down, we were really excited to do like another. We did our very first sports clinic a year to the day that Jordan passed on
Oh,
June the 13th. And
wow.
our very first sports clinic was very super duper successful. We did it at the McDonough School. University of Maryland football team came down, and basically we had our very first parent education session. And it was like,
Mhm.
man, it was fantastic. So the second year, COVID kicked in, and it was like, I got to do something else on this date because this date really, you know, his death, the date that he passed, we just wanted to kind of take our minds off of that date. So it was like working for the deadline. And the interesting thing is, when you look at the book per se, basically it was like, for me it was therapeutic. You know, that was therapy for me, because again it was just like, wow, you know, this is where we are now. Like it's definitely I got another one coming in as soon as I can sit down long enough to write it. But again, the book is just extremely impactful. And so the point that I was making, all of our donors, I had sent them a book, right? So I had
Right.
all these checks. I had like physical checks that came in all of the books. Like, okay, we got to send them one. We got to send them one. We got to send them one. Because again, that was really the main goal, to show people, like, we were in the media so much that I really wanted to tell people like our story, Tanya's and our story, our backstory, why we co-parented so well, why we, you know, look, and most people really didn't know. Tanya and I had went our separate ways when Jordan was 6 months, but we always co-parented very well. Like,
I
we're
love
like
it.
siblings. So again, how to love one another, and most importantly, the love for a child, and how to raise a successful
Mm.
child. So, hey, Marsha, I'm gonna tell you one of the things in our 5th year. We're hosting our annual fundraiser this year. So we had always did golf tournaments. I think we did 3 of them so far. And
Okay.
one of the things that when everybody played golf, you know, people want to come in. Everybody can't play golf, but those that did, you know, they come in after you played 4 or 5 hours. You want to come in and get something to eat, hear a couple words, and go on. So one of the big things for me was I always wanted to show people the work that we do, or at least from a video or documentary.
Oh,
We
that's
had a
great.
young lady that came to us a couple years ago, and she was like, look, I want to do a documentary. She knew Jordan around the same age, and she said, I want to do a documentary for my thesis project, or my film project at Wake Forest. And she followed us literally around for a year. And I mean, like, she was up and down the halls with us in Annapolis, pushing the initiative of the last bill, House 836. It was it was an athletic trainer on the field that day that we blamed for. I threatened this guy's life when Jordan first passed, because as a parent, you're angry.
Yep,
You want
that's
somebody to
right.
blame. And, you know, really, you know, we had a level of restorative justice in regards to forgiveness with this guy. And, faith just made us look at things totally different. So we wound up, getting with this guy and just made some serious amends with him. And man, it's just a really, really deep story on how far we've come as an organization. So we were really excited to really premiere that this weekend. I was watching it the other day, and man, it's just really like I'm almost in tears because Jordan was so many things to so many people. And not only to just, I think as all parents, you think that your child is special. Sometimes we don't know how special they are. You could have told me that he would be a household name in regards to sports. I always thought he would have been a football player playing on Sundays. But, this is where we are in life. And, we've literally embraced it. But so we're doing we switched it up this year, and we're doing a masquerade fundraiser this year, masquerade gala, a mask, not a costume. So we're hosting this Saturday. You can still get tickets to it. Even if you don't get tickets, you can make donations. But I think it's going to be a fun evening. Have all really, and the interesting thing for me, Marsha, is we've created some really good relationships with other families across the nation that will be in attendance, that whether they lost their child due to heat-related injuries or cardiac arrest, we all support one another. So I'm really excited about that. Man, we got a keynote speaker is Brooke Lehrman. And what I wanted to do, Marsha, is I wanted to go back and get the people that were instrumental early on. I wanted, one of our attorneys, Malcolm Ruff, he was the very first person that we talked to just because we needed some representation. Jordan was still living. Jordan hadn't passed yet. So, nobody really saw it taking a life of its own like this.
Yeah.
So I think those were the people that I really wanted to kind of talk to early on and have them speak because, really, I didn't know like this would be it. I knew that I had some public speaking experience, and I always wanted to be a public speaker. However, I never thought I'd be this public speaker about this particular project.
And it's coming from your heart, though, Marty. This is coming from your heart, and you can't get a degree that do none of that, right? This is all about that spirit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what's carrying you all through. And we don't have very, very long. We've only got a couple more minutes. Let's wrap this around and make certain that people know what to do about this masquerade ball on this coming Saturday. Is it Saturday?
Yep. This Saturday. Yep.
And so how can people get tickets?
Just go to the jordanmcnairfoundation.org and you can order your tickets there. You can make a donation there, buy a book there. We'll have books at the Masquerade Gala. I'll be signing them and taking pictures with folks. And, really, we believe in family. We believe in family first, and family is like our key because we never want another family to experience what we experienced. And even saving the lives of families and kids that we'll never, ever come face to face with is really our foundation's mission.
And that's powerful. And I think I just want you to know that every year you keep coming back and we'll keep telling this story. So just know it's understood. So this time next year, just put it on the calendar. We're going to keep on coming and keep on talking.
I understand. Yes, ma'am, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you for having me again, Marsha.
And know that we love you all. We love you all, Marty.
Thank you for the platform, for sure. And keep doing what you're doing. We need platforms like this to educate our people and make an impact. And sometimes even if we just explain it to folks in a way that they probably never would get it, that really, we speak at eye level with a lot of our people in a sense.
Let me tell you what the Marine Corps taught me. The Marine Corps said, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them, and tell them again. And that's how I function. And that was from 1980 something when I worked over there at the Marine Corps League, the Capitol Marines. Tell them what you go tell them what you told them, and tell them again. And that is your baseline, brother. You keep doing that.
As I'm going to write that down, and hey, look, I will be using that. Very tell them what you're going to tell them.
Tell them what you go tell them. Tell them what you told them, and tell them again. And
There you
then keep
go.
on telling me you got to. And you know me, I'm extreme. So yeah, I'm gonna tell you one more time. Yeah, I said it. Right.
Exactly.
Because
Correct.
that's
For
what
sure.
it gets. And once it gets into their DNA, it's understood. They don't
Yep.
forget about it. It'll be
Totally.
someplace in the front of the lobe opposed to in the background. And it'll be
Yep.
in their heart because they'll be
Yep.
able to believe in it and live it.
Totally agree. Yep. Thank you for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
Thank you
Hey,
so much.
Marsha,
I
thank
love
you
that
again.
picture. Thank you. I
Yep.
love that picture of
He got
Jordan.
his mama look. That's his
Beautiful.
mama's hair.
I love that picture. I love
Yep.
that
Thank you.
picture.
Thank
Baby,
you.
I'm just so proud of you. And
Thank
Jordan
you.
is proud of you and your
Yep. I
family.
know that he is. Thanks
Hard
again,
work,
Marsha. Have a
baby.
great evening.
Hard work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. You be blessed.
Bye.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Love you. Talk to you
Love you.
soon. Oh, gosh. I love that program. And we have to really be certain that we're clear about how we're going to take care of our babies out on these football fields, the basketball fields, the soccer fields. This is not a joke, and their lives are hanging in the wait. So, we're going to go to our next guest, which is going to be a little lighter. And Phyllis Yvonne Stickney is the second child born to Felix and Belle. Phyllis Yvonne Stickney was one of the first comedians of color to perform at the Je sais pour rire, hope she'll pronounce it better for you, comedy festival in Montreal, Canada. She performed with the late John Candy, as well as being introduced at the festival by Ed Begley Jr. to perform her stand up comedy. Her stand up performance at the world famous Apollo Theater was one of the selling points to sell the now popular Showtime at the Apollo to the network. Ms. Stickney is also a motivational speaker and published author and poet. She was the first female to ever perform with the Last Poets on the soundtrack of Panther 1995. Essence Magazine's 25th anniversary issue named her as one of the 200 African American women who has changed the world. Miss Stickney has created and designed a line of clothing for every woman called Butter Baby, scheduled to be launched in the spring and summer. Ms. Stickney is the founder, executive director for a nonprofit community based organization called Alternative Careers in the Arts. She's also an accomplished stage performer and has received 2 Adeleko Awards for excellence in Black theater. She was also the writer, creative consultant on the ABC short lived series New Attitude at Castle Rock Productions. She performed stand up comedy before the cameras appeared and was actually slated to be the first host of Showtime in 1987 before Sinbad, Kim Coles, and Steve Harvey. At the same time, she was cast in the original lineup of A Different World. That was the first Afrocentric character on national TV since Cecily Tyson wore a short afro. Please help me welcome Phyllis Yvonne Stickney. Coming up, hello.
How are you? How
How
are
you?
you doing?
I'm good. How are you, girl?
I'm grateful every day above ground. Trying not to
Girl.
be jet lagged. I just flew in.
Oh,
To New York for my Saturday show, and I was down south in Arkansas, down in the Deltaplex region, looking to, carry on the legacy down there. So
I love it.
I
So now
am
this new one
grateful.
is,
It's good to see you.
I know it's been a minute, but wait a minute. You're hitting the road is the next one. It's coming up on the 15th. I,
Saturday.
oh
This
my
coming
goodness.
Saturday. This
I,
coming Saturday.
I love it.
This coming
I love
Saturday.
it. I love
That's
it.
right. That's right. That's
And
right.
in
Hitting the
Harlem.
roads in Harlem at a place called Comedy in Harlem. It's on the east side. What they call it, Pleasantville now. It's called
Oh,
Pleasantville.
oh,
Sometimes it's referred to as Spaha,
ooh,
but
ooh.
it is above 110th Street. We know it as Harlem, but
Mm,
because of the changes in the demographics,
girl, don't get me
it's
started.
called Pleasantville now, but it's at 508 East 117th Street on First Avenue, over near the mall, next to a restaurant. And yeah, so it's owned by people of color and a husband and a wife, a couple. And so we're trying to support them. And this will be my 4th month, consecutive month.
Oh, I love, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
up there next week.
Well, you better come on to the show. Just shall I pitch your name down there?
Yeah, we're gonna talk after because I will be there.
Oh,
I don't know if it's
yes,
Friday or Saturday. I
we
have
had
to
a good
check.
time.
Yes.
We had a good time. We have been fortunate to have sell out, so that's been exciting. Sherry
That's what it's
Shepherd
good.
really boosted it. We were able to do that show on the 23rd of February, saluting our History Month, quote unquote. And so I've been having a good time. I've been having a good time getting ready for my specials. Trying to get the
So let's talk about
keep the
that.
juices flowing.
Let's
Mm.
talk about that. So these specials, and you have been all over the world performing, right? And in some of the
Yeah.
largest audiences in the world.
Mm.
As a
Yeah,
comedian,
Superdome.
let's talk about how that unction came from you as a comedian to say, okay, I'm getting ready to do this. I'm doing this forever, for real, and y'all just move out the way.
Well, the reality is that I started in theater, right? I had no idea that comedy would be a vehicle that would get me, quote unquote, recognized by the industry. But it's just my personality, Marsha. You know me. You know I'm not well. You know
And
that.
that's what I love
It's
about you.
really, I think it comes from my being the middle child. Number one, I grew up middle child. My parents had 5 amazing children. I always tell my mother 4 out of 5 ain't bad. She would go, girl, this, nothing, you're fine. I said, Mama, you did good. 4 to 5 ain't bad. But I was the middle child. I grew up the middle child. And I think just vying for the attention, comedy was my tool. That was my, strong suit. Just the way I saw the world. I was always able to mimic or mime people and listen to their, their music and their language and or their body language, and could people find controversial about how could find a way to fit into whatever I'm had a little find controversial about our relationship. I don't know what that is. Number one, I want my kid party. Yes, I know. I don't know what that is. Okay. So
And keep it moving, because
I don't
that's
know
what
what
we
that is.
do.
Look, this isn't my
And we keep it moving.
So
And there's a button on there
I
somewhere,
would be doing
girl.
comedy about today. I would be
Well,
doing
no
comedy about today,
question.
but really,
With the
it's
little
the way that
blue
I see
thing,
things.
the little blue
It's the way that
thingamajiggy, the little
yeah,
blue
that was
thingamajiggy
the
was
blue,
talking to
the little
you.
blue thingamajig. You saw me hand it off
Right.
because I'm not at home. I'm at one of my dear sisters, one of my besties. I came here because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to make this happen today.
I'm just
Hotels aren't
grateful.
just that warm. They aren't warm at all. And so Susan came to love my face. I have an amazing team that works with me. Susan and I have been sister friends. She's a makeup artist and just a dear friend. So she came to save me because I'm telling you, I look like I just got off the plane. I was like, I'm looking like I feel right about now.
Well, see, if you
Didn't
had
sleep
not
last
said a
night,
word, you don't. You
but
look like you've just been sitting and luxuriating. So we gonna lay
well, well,
back. We gonna
thank
lay
you, darling. Thank you
back.
so much. Thank you
Oh
so
yes.
much, darling. But I'm comedy was just it's just my way of seeing things.
Yeah.
I always was funny, I always had a sense of humor, always had a way that I saw things or that I could take it and turn it on the side and see it from a different, angle or perspective. And so I really started in comedy. The very first time was oddly, or doing stand up, right? Because I'd done comedic plays. I started in theater.
Okay.
And so the Black theater experience of Harlem or New York really at that time was thriving. There were 100 plus producing Black theaters
What?
in New York. Yeah. Now you're hard pressed to find 5. But at that time it was, before Sam Art Williams had been taken away from us to do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Black theater was thriving. So we always worked. Esapatha Murkison, all the people that you now see on television or you now see on film, those were my theater brothers and sisters. So my little special, the thing that made me different or stand out was my ability to do comedy, or my way to handle comedy. Lucille Ball was one of my influences, just because she was probably the biggest that we saw. I love Lily Tomlin because of her intellectual a way of comedy that was also political. There, Marsha. Oh my God, her name went. Marsha Warfield.
Ah,
Marsha
yes.
Warfield. And so you didn't see that many women on the mic, but I started one April 1st. It was the day that Marvin Gaye was left us, and there was a comedian, George Pope, was supposed to come in from DC, but he was so overwhelmed by what had happened to Marvin Gaye that he canceled. Roger Furman, God rest his soul, looked at me and said, "Phyllis, you're on. You're it tonight." And I was like, what? That translated into me going to Washington Square Park often and watching this guy named Charlie Barnett. And I often tell people, I love Eddie, love you, Eddie. Mwah, mwah, mwah. But if Charlie Barnett could have read, we would know nothing about Eddie Murphy, because that was Saturday Night Live's first choice. But Charlie was a street performer. And I had been able to catch one of his performances one day. I was just out in Washington Square Park, hanging out, studying my script. But it changed my life. When I saw what he did, passing the hat, if you will, and the audience that he was, and how he commanded the audience. And here I was, a student of the theater, where people came to the box office, and it was very formal. But I watched this man create magic in the streets, and that's actually where I started doing my comedy.
But what did he do?
I started doing it.
But what did he do that
comedy.
was so magic? But how did he?
Well, first of all, let's be real. Let's be real, Marsha. Let's keep it 1,000. You got to make them stop. This is New York City. Everybody's got somewhere to go. Everybody got a time.
Right.
Right. So the magic was, how do you make them stop? How do you make them stay? Then pay. Because they have an opportunity to just walk away. Nobody's holding a gun to them. They didn't pay. And that's what I used to say, bragging to some of my male cohorts and peers. Well, excuse me, you can't go out and I can pass the hat, right? I can make them stop. I can make them stay and then pay. That's actually where Barry Moss and Associates found me, or discovered me for a different world, was in Washington Square Park doing stand-up comedy.
I love it.
And I was one of the few females out there. There was Rhonda Hanson was one of the people that we saw. We saw Sylvia. We know Sylvia Whitmore. There was a handful of. There was a community, a small community. Even Denitra Vance. But Denitra Vance, the late Denitra Vance, added music. She was the first female of color to be on Saturday Night Live, and then Ellen Cleghorn followed. But ironically, behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know, I was there. I auditioned. Lauren Michaels, I think at that time I was just, I was a wild card. They didn't know what, I didn't have an agent. I didn't have the, for proverbial agent. I didn't have all the, other accoutrements that others had. I was just God. God had sent me there. God had put me there. So I got a chance to watch some of the greats. Richard Pryor, my all-time favorite. I would say, if Richard knew how much I loved them, I could have loved the pain. He was amazing.
I love
George Carlin, Dick Gregory. I call him my comedy baba, because he, I wouldn't say he tutored me, but he gave me the time. He gave me one-on-one time. He was the first one to give me some words of wisdom about who I was as an artist and as a talent, comedic talent. And actually says that who he really likes, when they ask him who is his favorite female comedian, he says who he really likes is Phyllis Stickney, and said some amazing things about me in a book, The Last Mile. And so comedy is really who I am in the, I guess, when all the other stuff is, faded away, comedy still stands, because it just comes out of me.
It's in your DNA. It's in your DNA, right?
It's in my DNA. And my mom was funny. My dad was funny, you know what I mean?
Really?
But intellectual. They weren't
Yes.
they weren't profane. You know, we didn't hear there wasn't profanity. You know, we couldn't even say lie. We had to say fib. You know, there was we came from a different uh uh a different family, you know, structure than we see uh too often we are void today. You know, we do have a mate like Mr. McNair, beautiful family, family unit, parents putting everything they can into their children. Unfortunately, I haven't had the comedy mic offered to me by some of my male counterparts, but they need to get out the way because she ready, she coming, she here. Y'all can't keep her back no more.
Because that day is
Baby.
behind us. We're moving forward. We're
Yes, we're moving
onward.
forward ever, backward never.
Never. I love that. Yes, that should be like a
Well,
slogan for real.
that's a Rastafarian statement. That's a Rasta said that a while. You know, forward ever, backward never. Yeah.
I love it.
So me like to adapt that little thing
Mhm.
there and tell them say forward ever, backward never. But yeah,
Mhm.
comedy it's medicine. You know,
It
I know
is.
why. I love to laugh. It really is medicine.
It
Your
is.
every massage in your body is being
Mhm.
massaged when you're laughing. Your
Mhm.
resistance. There's all kinds of wonderful hormones and pheromones and things that are happening in your body that actually make you feel. But this now they have laugh therapy. Come on now.
I
Now
know.
there's people
Well,
that are certified to laugh
right,
therapy.
because
Well,
they
I
don't know
must
what
have.
else to
I need
do.
my PhD. They need to bring my PhD.
For real, because that's what
I
you're
need.
doing.
I need. I needs my PhD.
Because that's what you're doing. What do you think of Mom's Maybelline?
I think well, after Whoopi did the special about moms and I found out she was Mr. Moms, and found out all the colorful and wonderful things about her life and how she was a part of the administration, how Johnson and others sought her opinion. I thought that Moms Mabley was brilliant in doing what she needed to do for the time that
Mhm.
she lived so that we still know her name.
Yes.
She made herself known, remembered. Um, I'm glad that I don't have to do a character
Mhm.
to work as a comedian.
Mhm.
At that time, as you know, many had to choose to do so because they could not stand flat-footed, as Dick Gregory says, and look, other folks in the face and talk. They had to hide behind a character, and I believe
Right.
that's the time in which she came. Vaudeville, burlesque, and all that. So, um, uh, learning about her lifestyle made her comedy even more hysterical to me
Yes.
after you found
Yes.
out, after I discovered, that she had a different lifestyle.
Mhm.
And, but she wasn't one that I would say I emulated all because that's not who I am. I like
No.
to present the regal side of who we are.
Mm.
Um, and make them remember who we are. I remember the first time I won first place at the Apollo. That show called Showtime at the Apollo. I was actually, as you said earlier in the intro, the slated to be the first host because I sold it to network television. I was one of
Wow.
the reasons that it went to network television. I had won first place in the regular historical um, amateur night,
Okay.
and Mr. Jones and some of the Sutton family knew about this interest in having Showtime at the Apollo being broadcast. After the response from the audience and being one of the few female or few comedians, male or female, to ever win first place at the Apollo, I was asked to come back that December. This was June, July of '86. And I came back that December, but they taped me. And
Ah.
at that time, they taped me. Roberta Flack, my godmother, God bless her, sending her prayers and light, prayers, 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 knew Andy Warhol. So she knew some behind the scenes stuff,
Mm.
and she knew there was conversation about this show being done. So she gave me a few little pointers. Go in there and you tell them that you want a copy of your tape. You want a copy of your performance.
Mm.
She said, because they're doing a 20-minute pilot, and 10 minutes of that pilot is your performance. So
Really?
it was sold to that was how it was one of the I was a part of it being sold to network television,
Wow.
and I was slated to be the first host, but I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a manager. And when they realized, it's like, I mean, now in hindsight, I know what happened. They were like, well, how's she get up here without,
Hmm.
what? How's
Wait
she
a
get
minute.
here? And then I had two shows. I had Different World and Showtime at the Apollo. So I would have been on two network television shows without an agent or manager,
Doing you.
without their stamp of approval, So
Mhm.
I had slipped between the cracks. And
Mhm.
politically, when they found out, they kind of slowed me down,
Mhm.
putting it mildly.
Because we already know what
Had
the
to slow
game is.
down.
We already know what the game
Hmm.
is. The good news is that you had already developed some relationships that are still standing, right?
Hello.
And
Yes.
you better have them so that you can get in between and go on figuring out how to get to that fire escape. Because you can't do it on your own in some places. They're not going, they can't hear. They're,
Cannot.
I call it non-hearing. They're non-hearing. And if you some
That's a good one.
right,
Non-hearing. No,
non-hearing. I
it's
don't care what
true.
you say. I don't care what you put in front of them. I don't care how big the information and it's to perfection. But
Mm-mm.
they made a life decision about what you going. Oh, we're gonna sit and yep, no, yep, no, and that's how they function. Unless you got somebody stronger than them, which you did, to be able to say we're going to circumvent all of that foolishness, and that's what
It's true. I
Roberta and
mean,
all the rest of them did.
yeah, I was fortunate to have come out of film school. I didn't ever think I'd
Smart.
be on camera, or I was interested in production, because
Mhm,
that's really where the power lies, to tell
mhm,
the truth be told. So
mhm.
I wanted to be the one to decide. I wanted to be involved in programming, because I knew that what was on that screen had more power and impact than we wanted to acknowledge at that
Yeah,
time, because it was just entertainment, but it was some powerful stuff being said and powerful information being dropped in and deposited while we're watching the boob tube, or watching the big screen. So for me, it's entertainment. Even my comedy has to have a message. Even my
yeah,
comedy, I call it intellectual comedy, intelligent comedy. I'm looking for
yes,
thinking comedians. I like,
yes.
anybody can talk about. I tell them I'm not going to talk about my pee or your D. It's not that important or funny.
At
So
all.
I would say often, if that's what you came for, then
You at the
I'll give
wrong
you 3
show.
minutes. You
That's
can go
down the
ahead.
street.
Yeah, they coming, or they
You ain't
already
doing that.
gone. I don't know, whichever
Hmm.
the case may be. But that's not
Right.
what you're gonna get
They
here.
ain't
You're
going
gonna
to
get a little
hear.
food for thought. Food for thought. That's what you're gonna get. You're gonna laugh a whole lot, but you're gonna get
Period.
some food for thought.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And that's
Oh yeah.
real.
So Saturday, I want to just keep sharing, because we have it's a lovely venue. It's an intimate venue, and it is on the second floor, and it's 508 East 117th Street, and Saturday, April 15th. Before I
I
go
love
down
it.
to Alabama, because I'm headed to Alabama. That's why we call the show "Hitting
The
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 Road
road black.
Black," because I'm hitting the road after
I,
that.
I
I'm on the
love
17th.
this.
I'm heading to Alabama to do something at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. Lynn Nottage's Clyde's. I play Clyde.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So that's it. Oh, you got it. Phyllis, hitting the road black. That's right. Saturday, April 15th
Yes.
at 8 p.m. And there's going to be some wonderful special guests there. Some surprise people that are going to share the mic, coming
Oh,
from down south. Hopefully, there'll be some local folks that'll come through. We have an amazing DJ. We'll either have Mama Soul, or we'll have the Mad Spinner. But we're going to have I try to keep a female DJ in the house. So
great.
we'll be there. We have amazing, it's a wonderful, little intimate. I love the intimacy of it. I love the fact that I can to go somewhere and play and don't have to leave Harlem. It's
See, and
fabulous.
that's the beauty of it. I'm coming back. I miss it so terribly.
Girl, I thought about that. Remember Jazz? See,
Yes,
Marsha, I don't know, y'all know Marsha was there. Me and Marsha were talking about Harlem before it changed. But remember
everything.
that dog, that pet, that business, the
Mhm,
idea, just ahead
mhm.
of its time. Because now we could definitely do pet grooming and
Isn't
pet
that
this and
something?
right,
But
all the what do you call, all the fabulous pet gear.
right,
You were ahead of your time.
But
Yeah, Harlem wasn't quite ready.
and I think what else is really important too is that I was reflecting the other day that you dream and you see yourself doing certain things, and I think the biggest pain that I have of not closing my business in Harlem was more about the families that had entered, that had generations of ownership in Harlem. And those businesses went out of business. It hurt me, but it wasn't my great grandmother's business and my grandmother's business and my grandfather's business that's been passed down for generations that closed the door because Clinton decided he was going to move to Harlem and bring all of that foolishness with him. And it's real.
It's very real.
It's
I
real.
started to do my comedy, and I would say the complexion of Harlem is changing. The complexion of Harlem is changing. And so that was my way. And then I would go on to talk about, remember Harlem? We could stay double park for 2 hours and get your hair done. When we had a community, it was a community then. It was different. Now you could play drums in Mount Morris Park. You can't play drums anymore in the park because
What?
the complexion of Harlem changed. Yeah, you can't play drums in the park. That was every Sunday. That was gathering. That's where we got together
Yes.
every Sunday in Mount Morris Park, and you could dance. The drummers were going to have a drum circle. You were going to be able to dance until your feet, got tired. But there was someone who complained, someone on Fifth Avenue who didn't like the drumming, and that's part of my comedy. I talk about that. It's like, come on, why they got to come and change everything? Why y'all got to change everything? We was fine. You act like it wasn't fabulous
It
or
was
valuable.
fabulous.
So you got here.
Right.
It was fabulous before you came.
Right.
We had St. Nick's
Before you were
Pub.
born.
Where's St. Nick's Pub? Where's St. Nick's Pub? Thank y'all. Y'all, closed up St. Nick's Pub. You made the Baby Grand is gone. Small's Paradise is an IHOP. Really, the culture. And then if I go to one more jazz club and don't see anybody brown on the bandstand, I'm like, how we doing this? How we acting? How we doing this? But it's like, you don't live on Frederick Douglass Boulevard anymore. You live on FDB. You don't live on Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. You know, ACP. And I was like, come on, y'all.
Oh,
come
stop.
on. Because the developers came and the culture ran.
I understand, because I couldn't hold on. The rent for my business went up so high. I could not hold on, girl. You know that. I couldn't hold on. I tried.
I remember. We had many conversations. Me and Marsha, we held up that corner over there.
For real.
What was that? One on St. Nick
and St. Nick. Yeah.
And St. Nick.
It's dry cleaners now.
Exactly. A dry cleaners. And that was an amazing. You had a fabulous idea because, of course, all the pets are there because when they come, they do bring their pets.
They do.
Their doggies are coming with their fur babies.
And art, and they couldn't.
And art, true. Right? More than the Studio Museum. You're right. A lot of galleries. A lot of galleries. But that's what you do. That's to me as a comedian, that's what I do. I take the world and that we're living in and kind of turn it like that to make you look at it and laugh about it, but also think. Right. Hopefully you're thinking like, wow, yeah,
that's why I love you and your work, because your work is deep, girl. This is real. I ain't playing with nobody, sister. I love you, but I ain't gonna say some old foolishness to all that. But
I love it. I love it.
But it's critical. It's real critical. You are straight up no chaser. You do it with love. You have this wonderful little look or a cute little something or a little smug something or a little side, whatever. But it's straight up no chaser. We know that it is no joke. And it's real. And it's real. And you shape the story in a way that it can be received.
It's palatable. Because I'm not, listen, those are our misbehaved children. You understand what I'm saying? I know who they are. I know why they are. I'd be afraid of me too. If I was this fabulous and he was looking like that, I'd be mad too. I got all this melanin about myself. I'd be mad too. Don't hate on me though. Hold up. Let's try to figure out how we're going to do this thing differently. Right?
Period.
Because it's like you can see him like, I remember I used to get on stage And what I used to tell the comics, from Martin Lawrence on, I remember Martin used to ask me, Martin used to work in the street, one of the few I have
I didn't
respect
know
for
that.
because it's not easy to do the street. But Martin came on out there with us, and I used to tell Martin, stop using so much profanity. You're never going to make it to network television because of your mouth. And he cleaned up his act. And I forget what's the first show, Mama, something. It was a rerun, or not a rerun, but it was a remake of or
Okay.
an extension of one of the shows that had played earlier in the 70s, 80s. Long story short, I understood at that time that if you were going to be successful in comedy, you had to be able to have universal comedy. A
Mhm.
lot of us had Black comedy. But I knew that if I was going to the comic strip, if I was going to be at Dangerfields, if I was going to be at the Comedy Store or the Improv, I wasn't going to be in the audience. I was going to be the minority for real in the audience. And so the test for us was really to see, can you make, as my mom would say, can you make other folks laugh? Because
Mm.
that's your audience. And so that's what
Mhm.
made me stand out
Mm.
from others back in the day. I didn't just do Black stuff. I did universal stuff. I talked about world stuff and not even so much politics. I would say politics. I'm allergic to BS is what I would say. People say, well, what about? They would ask me if it's about something politics. I would go, I'm allergic to BS. But now it's so crazy that you're pulled. You're pulled in. They talk about Putin. Putin is Putin. Putin ain't Putin. He boo boo.
Big ones too.
Okay, he is
He
not
ain't
Putin.
playing.
He is boo booing. Okay, all on
Mhm.
himself. Okay.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just things that when you see now what's happening in the world for us, to us, with us, um, you better laugh.
You have
That's
to.
something that Big Gregory said to me one day. He said,
Mm.
you will be grateful for the gift of laughter because it'll be the only thing that keeps you sane. And he ain't never
Mhm.
lied.
And that is real, girl. You
Isn't that
know,
real?
too often I'm sitting and observing all of this madness, and people such as yourself, you do it so well that you can take this madness, and it's almost like a piece of clay that you put in your hand. And while we know that it's some
Mhm.
Putin stuff, you can take that Putin and reshape it to make it acceptable.
We have the dialogue about it. The thing that even what's happening now, that what we're seeing in the world right now, we are seeing something that changed and not for the better,
Dramatically.
dramatically. I never even talked about the man. I don't even want to call his name, Orange
Right.
Guy. I
Right.
don't. But I'm looking.
Right.
I'm going. Okay, so he was proof that you could buy the the presidency. That's. Is
Number
that what
one.
happened?
Number one.
Is that what had happened over there? Because he was so shocked. You could see he was shocked. The first,
Because
his
it was
first,
he said,
first
oh, we
couple
was
of
just gonna
days,
do it.
he was shocked. He couldn't even believe it. He couldn't believe it had happened. But he owed somebody for that. And we are now, I think, experiencing the effects. But I also want to say to some of us when we get into talking conversation and politics about, well, Biden this and Obama that. It ain't one guy doing nothing.
Period.
Please stop, people.
Period.
Please believe it is not him doing anything.
Mm-mm. On his
He is
own.
but the spokesperson. He is but the mouthpiece. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on
Mhm.
behind the scenes,
What did
and
they
we need
call
to
it?
wake up.
Remember those puppets, the little puppets? They
Yeah,
had a
the
little
puppet.
string, and the puppeteer
Yeah,
was up here.
yeah,
Puppeteer was
yeah,
moving all the little stuff. He
yes,
just moving it. Oh, they
yes.
tearing it around. Right.
It's not, we, and especially Americans, we have to start paying attention to the world view and have global conversations. Sometimes we get too local. We don't know
Mhm.
nothing about but if it didn't happen in the bodega at the corner, we don't know.
Right.
We have to start expanding. And I know some of us already are and do, but
Yes.
part of one of the reasons I'm going back to the Deltaplex where I was born is to start conversations, organizations, events, and activities that will help us come into the fullness thereof, if you will, come into the knowledge of, come into the awareness of where we are,
Mhm.
who we are, why we are, and what we can do about it.
Mhm.
We're not helpless.
Mhm.
We are not helpless to this whole situation. We do have a say in it, and we need to get busy. We need to get busy.
But
because
see,
they ain't stopped now
there,
one day.
at all. But see, here's what the beauty is about what you do and how you do your shows. It's at a higher vibration. It is
Frequency.
intellectual. Yes. Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
We gotta raise, and it's true. You gotta
Yes.
raise the vibration. You gotta
Yes.
raise the frequency. We gotta stop thinking low. These low vibration thoughts and
Murmurs.
elevate.
They're little murmurs.
Elevate.
Yes.
You know, it's like there is so much for us to see and to be a part of. And um, it was so my dear sister Lauren shared something with me earlier today. We were talking about, you know, the things that are happening in the news,
Hmm.
and she was talking about how the Caucasian woman was asked, did she think the decision to uh, uh, release, if you will, the other two council people and keep her
Oh,
was racist.
right.
And there was a time when she would have said, well, no, I don't. But this, she said, yes, yes,
Because it's real.
yes,
It's
it's
real.
real. So it's almost like, come on, you can't put us back to sleep. You can't. We're
We're
awake. You
awake.
can't, you can't, you
That's
can't.
right.
You,
That's
oh,
right.
you doing, they look like they come to put some movie duff in our face and we go,
Mm-mm.
no, no, no,
Mm-mm.
no, no.
That don't
We
work
know,
no
no, no.
more. We have an
No, that don't
antibody.
work.
It's an antibody
Mm-mm.
here. You can't do that.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'd
Mm-mm.
be like the girl, bend it to all of my face and
Right.
everything. Let me try
Right.
to tell you something. I am not going for it. I do not like what you're talking about. I don't like how you saying it. I don't like how you trying to play me. Oh no, I'm not going back into slavery. So you need to get over yourself and you need to get the jobs back in the streets and out the prisons. Y'all trying to act like we all supposed to be on paper. Miss me with the madness. Miss me with the madness. They just act like we ain't seeing. I see with all three of my eyes. All three of my eyes. Boom, boom, and boom. I see with all three. All three. And the one up here is the one to see real good.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all need to stop.
Mm-hmm. That third eye is serious.
Listen, I used to say, well, listen, they keep on doing all this stuff. They think they're gonna destroy over here and go up in space, and they're gonna be shocked when they get up to Mars and Jupiter, Saturn, and there we are. Yo, what's up? They gonna be so shocked. They gonna be shocked. They need to stop playing with me. Stop playing. Nobody playing with them. How they gonna keep on playing? And I said, what? Jesus, how he lived where he lived 33 years and not wear hair, not be black? Huh? How you gonna be a racist and What you saying? Did you? I ain't never seen no straight lamb's wool. Ain't nobody said in your book. You wrote
Ever.
it. You wrote it, didn't you?
Ever.
It said hair like lamb's wool. That's what it said right here. I can read it.
Ever.
Okay.
You see it. You see
Ever.
it. You see
And
it.
so let
You
me
see
see
it.
some straight. Let me see some silky straight lamb's wool, yo. Let me see that. Ain't no silky straight lamb's wool jumping off over here. Okay. So I'm just like, they're so afraid, but it's like we're being kind, okay? Because we brought you here. You ain't bring us here. I'm talking about to the whole conversation of
Right. Period.
humanity,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Because
That's
you can
real.
get everything from black. You can get all colors from black. You can get red from black. You can get yellow from black. You can get pink from black. You can get brown from black. But you can't get nothing from white. And white is not a race. Okay, let's stop. Stop talking baby talk. Stop talking baby talk. They are not white people. They are Caucasians and Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on where you put the emphasis. European or European. It depends on European or European. It depends on how they feeling that day. Where you put your accent will tell you who they is. Now y'all can get some more education. I'm telling them.
I love her. You know what? I think one of the things that's so important here is that when we sit down and start talking about the different races and the historical aspect of the lives of folks with melatonin, Black people, we are here. We are on every continent. And that's the part that's so beautiful. Let me see. We're going to bring you in. I don't know where.
Yeah, him is.
Oh, there you
Girl,
are.
I got too excited.
I
You
saw it.
see?
I just started laughing and kept on talking because
I got them hands to clapping.
girl,
Because that's how the
yes.
girl. I be talking about my girls today, my little girls today. I love my babies. I'm trying to get y'all to come on because we got to teach y'all. We got to work with you all.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Them, what's with
Yes.
the clapping to the talk? What's with the
Yes.
clapping when you talk?
Right.
Where'd they get that at?
I don't know, but it's like
What's that
clap, clap.
about?
It's like
I'm like,
clap,
yo,
clap, clap, clap,
no,
clap,
no,
clap.
no,
It
no,
was
no.
a song. Remember the dance? It was a song 100 years ago. Clap, 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 clap. Remember, and you could dance to it. Something. Anyway, that
Oh
was a
my
long time ago.
goodness.
Clap, clap,
Girl,
clap,
listen, we
clap.
don't clap, clap.
Right. That was part
Mm.
of a song. I wonder who that was. I'll have to look that
I
up.
wonder who that was.
Right,
But
because
girl,
it
listen,
was. Who did the song with
it
the clap,
was.
clap in it? And they look
It
like
was a
us.
song with the clap, clap. Who was that?
Yes, the clap,
I mean,
clap.
but that's what when songs had lyrics and stories and meanings. Yeah,
Um,
back in the day. Well,
yes,
at least we have line dancing today, because if not for that, we would only have sex songs. We would only have not even sex songs. We don't have.
those
Yeah,
those songs. I can't find it. It's not
I mean,
popping up like that. But anyway, those things don't always impress me. I like stuff
mm.
that leaves me with thought. I
Well,
like
that's
going to a comedy show and hear something that you would say that makes me pause. It's
yeah,
funny, but it's
but
deep,
yeah.
right?
Yes, there was a comedian named William Stevenson, and I loved it. He had his deepivity factor. He said, "My deepivity factor is way low."
Right. Or how much
So
of
we
that
need to get
hmm
we need our deepivity factors to get low, way low, because that surface stuff is not serving us well
at
at
all.
all, at
Not at
all.
all.
And we just
Right.
got the babies that we gotta it's really about each one teach one. You got to reach back and get one. I was in Arkansas, and was getting my nails done, well, actually polish taken off my nails,
Uh-huh.
and there was a little girl that was sitting there, and I couldn't help but overhear her conversation. And it was, and Miss P, I had told her this, and Miss P, I promise you, Miss P, she was telling Miss P what had happened, Miss P. And then when they came home there from DHS, and I was good, Miss P. And so from this conversation, I could discern, I learned that this little girl had been in this foster care, and there had become an altercation between she and the foster mother. But when the DHS came and she gave her report, the woman was deemed unfit to be a foster parent. Yeah, because she said, she told them, y'all see them big old rats in here. Y'all see so and so, so and so, so and so. Y'all know how how she lived. Y'all know she shouldn't be having no kids here. Make a long story short, they took the woman out of the system. She can no longer have foster children, and that's also part of what we're dealing with now. While I want these hands that rock the cradles, we got to be more responsible and more accountable, more involved. If they're not your biological children, just like they back in the day, we were part of a community,
Yes.
and so we have
Yes.
to really bring that community back full circle,
Yes.
because our baby, and she was, I said, may I say something to you? I said, I overheard your conversation. I said, I couldn't help it. I said, it's not but a couple of us in here. I couldn't help but hear you. I said, but I just want you to, because she kept saying, I'm staying with my sister, but it was such a different age difference. And she said, she bougie though. So I just listened. She said, she bougie though. So when she got off the phone, I said, may I say something to you? I said, may I come sit next to you? It was a chair between us. And she said, yes, ma'am. I said, I said, first of all, you have a chance to start all over, write a clean
Mm.
slate. Nobody knows you at this school. Nobody knows you in this neighborhood. So whatever you
Mm.
did or didn't do, were or were not in the
Mm.
past, you can rewrite your story. You got a brand new start.
Right.
I said, and whoever that sister is, this bougie. I said, what you mean by bougie? I said,
Mm.
I said, because I'm bougie.
Mhm.
Like that. So she
Mhm.
kind of
What does
chuckled.
that mean to
She said, well,
you?
huh?
And what does that mean to
Yeah.
you, to her?
What does
Right.
that mean to you? And really what it was judgmental. When she told me what it was, she said, well, she talk about if you don't dress like her, if you don't do this like her, da, 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 da. I said, oh, I said, that's more judgmental, don't you think, than bougie?
Mm.
Because there's nothing wrong with being bougie as long
Yeah.
as you don't look down your nose at anybody, right? As long as you don't think you're better than anybody. I used to always say, I'm not better than, but I'm different than a lot. I may not be better than, but I'm different than, And so I just felt in that moment, I reconnected and remembered what was important. Why am I on that stage? Why do I do what I do? Some
Mhm.
little girl is out there. African-American Women on Tour was in existence for 13 years. We went all around the nation. We spoke every city that we went in. There were little girls that were there to hear, to see, to experience. I remember a 6-year-old girl being in my audience at Delaware Theater, and I kept wanting to talk about a more adult conversation. And finally, I said to the mother, why don't you bring that baby to my show? And she said, oh, you got it wrong. She brought me. I said, huh? She told me. So I went down to the audience and I said,
I
what did
love
you
it.
just say? He said, she told me she wanted to come see you. I said, how old is she? 6 years old. I learned something from that. Then there was another situation where I was doing the keynote speaking on the African American Women on Tour. There were luncheons and we would have various keynote speakers every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It would be a different speaker. And this one particular evening, I remember our event, I was on the stage at the podium and I saw this man come in the door and he just kind of stood because we were always at the ballrooms, in the hotels.
Mhm.
We usually were our events or our speaking took place. Make a long story short, as I was speaking, he gradually made his way up to the front of the audience, and one of the people with the production, motioned for him to come and speak to them. Basically, what do you want?
Right.
And so then I saw them standing. I'm watching from the stage. I'm watching all this transpire. Like, who is this guy? Why is he walking down, like in the middle and in this wonderful purple suit? It was quite an interesting hue of purple, but he was wearing it well. Okay. And so the next thing, I conclude my presentation, and I still see them standing there. And I'm like, okay, I guess they're waiting to speak to me. So as I end and thank and kiss and whatever, and what? And so he says, I wanted to meet you. I wanted to know who you are because my daughter talks about you all the time.
Well, oh, what?
And I wanted to know who was the person that had that kind of influence on my daughter's life.
Wow.
But now that I've heard you, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, So when I realized that there were young people listening, there were younger people that were being affected. Even my shows today, when the 20s and the 30s, because I always ask who's in the room. Well, my 20-year-olds, well, my 30-year-olds, so I want to know who am I talking to? Who's in the room? Who's in the room? And I'm always pleased and shocked because I don't, I'm not profane or vulgar,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the comedy that we consume today is, unfortunately,
Yeah.
so when I see them in my show, in my audience, I ask them, what brought you here? And they usually all say the same thing. I've been following you since I was a little girl. I've been following you since I was a little girl.
I love it.
And I think, what is it that I have? What is it that I bring to them? What is it that I give to them? And how can I keep giving it? How can I keep sharing it? I think it's my pride of being a woman, my pride of being Black, my absolute unapologetic way of being who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they see that it's possible for a little brown girl, you know. I try not to get involved in scandals, and I have not been, without stain. But I tell people I repented, and when I repented, I really was serious.
Yes, and
So,
keep it moving.
And I
God
kept it
forgave
moving,
you, and that you keep it moving, and that's it.
And I forgave me. God
Right.
forgave me, and I forgave me.
Okay.
You
Period.
know. And I keep it
And you
moving,
keep it
you
moving.
know.
You don't, and they don't need to turn it around because that's behind you.
And,
What's behind you is
and look, and
done.
then it become comedy. Hold up. And then it do become comedy. After
And
a minute, it
I can
become
get paid on
comedy.
off of that foolishness.
Okay, because hold up, I'm be talking about you. Keep on, I'll be talking about you about how everybody laughing at you. Okay, while you all up in my face about everybody laughing at you when I tell them, curtains don't have feet. How come this man was standing in the curtain, standing behind the curtain? I said, curtain don't have feet. That must be that dude, and it was
See,
that dude.
you know that one.
Curtains don't have feet. Yeah, that one. I was like, how you?
That one.
He called me that name, the B word, so much I had to go check my birth certificate to see if Mama had changed my name.
Oh, see, those are war words. As old as I am, you see all this white hair. You see all this white hair, girl.
Girl, please,
That's still war.
look here. I'm just high. I only wears it out when I'm on stage and stuff. I only wears her usually. But girl, please, we're the silver
Foxes.
We're the look.
You got a new name.
Vintage. We're the vintage ones.
I like that, vintage.
Because it may be a mixed audience. I'll tell you. You understand what the other V for? We're vintage V. VV. Vintage. As my friend says. Listen, Saturday. I'm not gonna let them forget. Saturday. You all want to come and see me live. If you see New Jack City, Jungle Fever, what's love got to do with Talk to the Dog? Come see me live.
Right.
Miss Pat Show was nothing.
And you gotta say it one more. She wrote it in here. Comedy in Harlem at 508 East 117th Street. Hitting the road, blackeventbrite.com. So it's in the chat. You need to go there and make certain you get the ticket because they're going to be sold out. Harlem don't be playing. They will sell out in a minute.
And you see it's a nice, you see the weather nice. You see the weather nice, so you know how we gonna be coming out looking cute. Y'all better come up with your fun to go to meeting on.
Real cute. Because girl,
y'all come on out and look cute. And they have usually there's a caterer there. And if not, there's the restaurant downstairs, but the bar is always lovely.
I love it.
And we have a good time. We dance, good school music, real school music. We have a good time. Always have Mama Soul or somebody putting the on the ones and the twos. Right. Yes. And I'm telling you, it's like a reunion, a good school reunion or a family picnic because we have a good time. So I'm hoping that you, Marsha, will come because I haven't seen you. I need to hug your face. I need to hug your face.
But I'm gonna be there next weekend, not this weekend. Next weekend.
Oh, I'll be in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
From the 18th of April until I'm doing Clyde. So this is why I'm saying hitting the road, Black, because I'm
love it.
Doing
so
the April 15th and I'm
Baltimore and the DMV.
When they invite me.
Okay, so that's a sidebar conversation. We should have that conversation.
I'm ready.
Yes, and we have a new convention area, and a couple of names are part of the ownership over there. So that's an offline conversation.
That's because I'm ready. We really, really are ready to do a tour. I have a couple of people that I want I've never done a tour. I did open for Patti LaBelle in 1991 and a comedian, I won't call any names, but his initials is Terry Hodges, came. My daddy used to do that. I love it. I'm telling you, my daddy was silly. He would say, I ain't gonna call no names, but her initials is Phyllis. And he'd be like, I ain't gonna call no names, but his initials is Terry Hodges.
Right.
Came and somehow was able to get those dates. And so since that time, I opened for Shaka Khan, I've opened for Patty, I've opened for Roberta Flack, but I've never done a comedy tour. And I'm really looking to do that. And I'm ready to do whether it's Netflix, Showtime. Netflix seems to have the corner on comedy specials right now. So we need to talk. Definitely. Absolutely. And everybody that's on this show with Marsha Jews, y'all need to get your ticket right now. Stop playing. Go online. Comedy in Harlem. You can go there or Eventbrite and get your ticket for Saturday. Now, it's a very limited. So get your ticket. Don't be talking about, don't be trying to call me and tell me, can I come in with you? Don't do it. You know,
Right.
people call you. You know how y'all. You know how we do. Call me on the morning of the show. Been knowing about it for 6 weeks, and you gonna call me on the morning of the show. Phyllis,
See,
yo,
that would
what's
be
up?
me. I think I'm gonna come. Right.
Oh, I had people that I love, you know, that I just couldn't, we were oversold. And
I love
so
it.
Brenda Bronson Bay, I love you. Brenda Bronson Bay is an amazing designer, always dresses me when I need her. She comes through in a major way. And I wasn't able to offer her tickets because we were sold out. And I want to be sold out again, but I want you right there to have a seat right now, to sitting on this TV, you know, right now, to sit up here watching this stream yard. You know what you need to do.
Period.
Get your fingers to walk into the thing.
And quit
Go and
playing.
call Comedy in Harlem. Comedy in Harlem. If you can't remember the Eventbrite, Phyllis Stickney, Hitting the Road Black, Phyllis
Right.
Yvonne Stickney, whichever one you want to do, go to Comedy in Harlem. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to miss the show. That's what you
At
don't
all.
want to do.
Not at
You
all.
want to have this experience. You want it. You need it.
You better.
Trust me. It's going to help you have a better summer.
And you need to do the tour. You really need to do a tour.
I'm ready. I'm really ready.
The tour.
I'm really
That's
ready.
huge.
I'm
That's
really ready.
huge.
I've been
And
ready, but ready.
no, you're ready now.
Uh-huh.
All that,
Yeah, I'm
whatever
ready.
is done.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Close.
passed away. All that went with him. So yeah. Yeah. You
Now
look amazing.
we're
I'm so
moving
happy.
forward. So do you. That's so
Oh
good
no,
to
I was
see
like,
you.
when I want to first of all, I want to thank Gwendolyn and
Yes,
Deneen and Lauren
they handled
and
it.
Susan and all of the people that care, you know, all the Flora, all the people that care. Every once a month we've come together. We've been, you know, it's been by popular demand. I'm back, and so this time I can't come back right away because I've got the tour. But it has been a wonderful reception from the audience of Harlem and around. We've had people coming from Florida. We've had people that, you know, that haven't seen me in a while. So if you really want to have a good time and come get your dose of laughter, your dose of medicine, come on Saturday, April 15th. Now I'm gonna tell y'all one more time. April 15th. One more time. April what? 15th.
April
What time?
15th.
8 p.m. What show? I ain't doing that.
Isn't that the
I'm
time when you're
overthinking
supposed
now.
to pay your taxes too?
Yeah, well, it's changed to April 18th. It used
Oh,
to be
okay.
April 15th,
Oh,
but now
okay.
it's April 18th. They gave us
Oh,
a
that
3-day, you know, grace period.
okay.
But yeah, April 15th used to be tax day. You're absolutely right. And
Okay.
I think in some places, but I think someone told me it was the 18th now. So
Okay.
you just got to come and, you know, relieve yourself. You know what I mean? You get to send them papers in, e-file them, whatever you're going to do, and then come on out and laugh at yourself
I love it.
with
I
me.
absolutely love it.
Laughing at me.
Girl, I need you to do that national tour or international tour. An
Yeah.
international tour. I
We're
need
going
you
to
to do
work
that.
on that.
I
I'm
need
serious
you
because
to do that.
we have this was when she told me your name. I was like, Marcia, and they just all that just started coming back. I was like, okay, it's time. Things don't happen just by. There's a certain
No.
understanding or overstanding of us. Some of us overstand what time we're in, and that we just gotta get out there and get it done, get it said, get it done. Speak it, speak it, speak it loudly, speak it clearly, speak it lovingly and uncompromisingly.
Right. And take no
Yeah.
prisoners.
No, I mean, it's like, come on, y'all. I mean, really, that's a simple. We can go back. We can. We
At all.
can.
Not at all.
And the lie isn't working anymore.
Mm.
You can't keep telling the same lies. You just can't. You just
Mm.
can't. The truth has
That's
been revealed now. You want
powerful. That's really
to?
powerful, Phyllis, on a lot of different levels. You can't continue the lie.
You
It's
can't
no
continue the
longer
lie, and that's the thing that makes me really need to get out there. It's like, okay, come, we got to stop. We have to stop because you and I both know that that's not what you did. History's proven it. Science has proven it. Let me show how many articles I need to show you that says that what you're saying is a lie. Hello?
period.
Are you still going to
Exclamation
continue the
point.
lie?
Right.
Right. Okay. Boom. That's a lie. Listen, they proved it here. There was, you know, it's like, it's so many places that we can prove that so much of what the Piltdown hoax, we know y'all are liars. We know that we know that you lie on a major and a regular basis. We know that you lie. So what we're trying to do now is to help you get some salvation. Stop lying.
Right. Get Jesus.
Stop lying. Okay. Confess your truth and just confess it.
Right.
Just confess it. Say, I lied. I've been lying. We know Addicts was there. We know Christopher. We know you lying. We know you. We know. But we ain't mad. We're trying to get. This is called the grace period. We're trying to be good with you. We just come on. Just like when Mama know that you ate that candy bar. You got the chocolate all. Mama know you. Mom, listen. I'm your mama. I know you lying. I know how you look when you lie. I know how you sound when you're lying. Now, close your mouth. Close your mouth. Sit on down over there and listen to what we have to say. Okay? Because we have some things that we need to say. See all these people over here, and listen, people is mad at you now. People mad at you now. They're about to double team on you. Y'all better, y'all gonna keep on lying. And people, it's about 11 dozen people I know mad at you. They about to double team up on you. They about to double team up on you. They don't want your money. You can't send your food nowhere. You can't export nothing that we eat in this here place called America nowhere. Why? Why are you feeding us this stuff? Come on. We got to tell the truth. We got to tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. And I'm just because I'm a woman.
Yeah, but that's real deep. That's real deep. What you said on a lot of levels, Phyllis.
But that's what I'm hard. Because that's the only thing that's stop the lie. You can't keep perpetuating it.
Right.
Because you're looking stupid right now. The world looks at you like you're stupid. I hide my passport. Tell you, I be hiding. I be trying to make it orange or purple, anything.
Right.
I mean, because of how we are viewed around the world.
Right. Because it's so outrageous.
Outrageous. And then when you see the ugly ones that are traveling, you see the ugly American, you're like, this is why. How can I leave a beach that was pristine, wonderful, but now after the 4th of July group or the whatever American group, it looks like a pigsty. What's going on here? But you're what? You're who? You're what? No. The world, it's a whole lot of people mad. Whole lot of people mad. And like I said, they about to double team up on these people, and like I'm one of them. I ain't in it. I wasn't in it. See, we can say we wasn't in it. We wasn't in it.
But we've watched. But we've watched.
We
see
watch. We saw how you treated everybody. The American dream is to be white, and that's a nightmare for everybody that's else, or to be Caucasian. And they say even that. I remember when it came to me, that's how my comedy comes to me. When I know I'm going to work on something, it says, I'm going to stop speaking baby language. It came to me just like that. Stop people speaking baby language. They not white people. That's a station of nobility. They are not white people. It's not a race.
Right.
It's a station of nobility. That's the truth. That's what I said. I got to stop telling even they're not white people. They are not. There's a station of nobility. That's what white was, without stain. Ooh, and they in 1600 legislated for it to become who they would be known as, or how they would be identified politically. It was a political, just like us being called African Americans. We don't even know why they want to call us that, because it disconnects us with ownership to this land. If you belong to Africa, you can't own none of this. How you got ownership to this? But see, we don't pay attention. We don't read the small print. Okay, there you have it.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning, the opener for this huge stand-up comedy show. And you need to take some paper and pen with you so that you can take copious notes and share it.
That's my word. I love that word. I say I'm the spook who's been sitting by the door taking copious notes.
And honey,
Saturday, April 15th, come get your dose. You need it. for your life. You need it for your laugh. Come get your laugh on. Come get your laugh on. Release, 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 grow. Reset your frequency for success.
And that's 508 East 117th
East
Street
117th Street.
in Harlem.
That's right.
It's
in Harlem. It's in the mall. It's near the mall. People, there's no sign. So I tell people we have a sandwich board sign. This couple has been there for a little while. And so we're hoping that they will be able to get their signage and all of that. But listen, everybody on the block can tell you where we are. Okay. Comedy in Harlem, 508 East 117th Street, second floor. Saturday, April 15th, Saturday, April 15th, 8 p.m. is showtime. One show only. We got some special guests and we got some live DJ music coming for y'all to get your little groove on. And of course, I will be holding the mic.
I know you will. And I'm going to tell everybody that's up there.
Yes, please tell them. Come on.
I'll send it over to them too.
This is my what do you call it? My rap party, because I'll be leaving to go on the road I do the show on the 15th and I'm on the plane on the 17th.
I love it. All right, baby.
I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you, Denise. Thank you and all of your people and everyone.
All right. Thanks, Tanya.
See you Saturday.
Okay.
Comedy in Harlem. Mwah.
Love you, girl. Thank you.
Love you. We'll talk after.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Peace. Thank you, fam.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phyllis Yvonne Stickney. I'm so excited that she's here and you're on the road, girl. Praise God.
Thank you. Yes.
All
Thank you. Thank you.
Another wonderful We Keep It Moving media network.
It's that time. It's that time.
It's that time. And it's on and popping.
Peace.
Okay.
Signing off.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you. And we'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed the show. It was full, powerful. Share it with your friends. And make certain you go up to the WKIM Media Network YouTube channel. Take that link and share it. Take care. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week.